Welcome back to the SkyTy Council. Council is in session.
For the first episode, we want to talk about Anakin Skywalker, my Dark Prince. And then there will be spoilers, so if for some reason you have not watched these movies, we really have to get on that. But yeah, Anakin Skywalker. Tragic hero or villain? The tragic hero portion would be, was he like a victim to his circumstances? Was he, played by Emperor Palpatine? Or was he a villain who kind of chose his fate, chose his ways? What do you think? Like, just off the rip, what do you think?
In the end, he brought balance to the Force. He was a good guy.
Yeah, but like...
Totally. He didn't go about it the correct way. He slaughtered a bunch of children.
Well, that's like the cut and dry. You're skipping way ahead.
All right, well,
I'm talking like...
well, there's a lot of gray. I think there is a lot of gray. Mm-hmm. You don't think there is?
No, there's gray. I think that's why.
Sure, but...
It's a question you can kind of like dabble on for a while.
If you technically go off the end of Luke Skywalker saving him, wouldn't you say that that's him bringing balance to the Force?
Well, that's Vader. That's not Anakin Skywalker.
Oh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we were doing that. Okay.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. I guess if you're counting them as one and the same, so like, I would say that Anakin from like, Attack of the Clones to End of Revenge of the Sith, I think he's a tragic hero in that sense. It's unfortunate. He really was played. Like, he was the puppet. And I think Palpatine was pulling his strings like crazy.
He was pulling strings the entire time.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. But...
Yeah, for sure. And so I think that when you have someone who's, he's really just someone that got taken advantage of. And that's, sad. You don't think he got taken advantage of?
Oh, no, he definitely did. There was somebody else that we thought was, it was like the same thing. And we were going like...
Well, there's someone in my book. Are you talking about my theory?
No, I don't think it was yours.
Oh, okay. I was reading what's that? The Fourth Wing series, and I have like a theory about Zayden. That's it. That's a whole other thing. You can find me on TikTok for that. But I had like a Star Wars theory about him. But no, who was it?
No, I think it was we were debating on when Obi-Wan confronts Padme, and he's like,
oh, yes!
I had no idea. And it's like, you didn't see the signs? And it was like, what? And then we watched episode 2 for the first time in like a while. And we're sitting there going...
Yes. So what he's talking
about... The
is...
dictatorship scene, I do not remember as a kid. Yeah. I was like, what?
So what Tyler's talking about is there was this TikTok that we sent to each other on, we were watching it. And it's Obi-Wan going to Padme and saying like, Anakin's turned to the dark side. And she's like, how can you even say that? And then it cuts, and it's all the times throughout the prequels that Anakin was just like unhinged. It's
starting to get bad.
They're like animals to me, and like the men and the women and the children too. But then there's also a scene, and it's from Attack of the Clones, and it's when they're having the picnic, and Anakin's saying that if people don't agree, they should be made to agree. And Padme's like, oh, that sounds like a dictatorship. And he's like, Mom, if it works.
If it works. Mom's sitting there going, I do not remember that.
Right. And so she acts like so surprised when Obi-Wan tells her that Anakin is evil now. And it's like, babe.
How can you say that? And I'm sitting there going...
There were signs. Like, actually a lot of signs. But...
Murdering an entire tribe of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy, but it was very obvious. But
I think when it comes to Anakin, like, especially when you remember his mom...
Yeah.
Shmi. When you remember Shmi, it is the catalyst. There was something we were talking about earlier, and it's
the spark.
Yeah.
It's the spark of why he kind of goes off the rails.
He's got mommy issues.
And it's also his wife defending him, saying, I don't believe it. Because she didn't witness technically anything. If you think about it, she didn't witness him smoking a bunch of people. She didn't witness him smoking kids in the Jedi Council. Nothing.
Yeah.
So she almost probably doesn't want to believe it, and she doesn't think it's true. So
yeah.
But the thing is, he's fighting for her the entire time, but nobody even realizes that.
I think I'm just always going to say that he was a tragic hero.
Definitely.
sense. I always feel like every time I watch episode 3 or like prequels episode 3, I'm always like hoping that the end will be different. And it never is, you know.
Instead, you get some of the greatest lightsaber battles of all time.
There you go. I'm sticking with Tragic Hero. Tyler's teetering, but he also knows that I have like a huge crush on Hayden Christensen, so we can't take anything he says to heart. But in terms of bringing balance to the Force, did Anakin do that?
100%.
I know. I think so too.
100%.
I think so too. And that's one of my favorite things to talk about in Star Wars is the misconception that I think everyone has watching it. Like when you go into it, is that when they're talking about he's going to bring balance, he's going to do this. For some reason in our heads, it's like he's going to get rid of the evil. But that's never been what the Force is about. Like the Force really is just a balance. And when we were rewatching, when you threw on what episode was that?
2?
No, and you threw on one of the sequels.
Oh, it was we put on Last Jedi.
Yeah, I can never keep like any of the like episode titles straight. So
The
forgive
second
me.
sequel.
Yes, when Luke is having Rey kind of like go through the Force and with us, she's like, "Oh, it's life, it's death, it's this, it's that." Like it's all these things in nature that hang in balance, and evil and good are always going to be like on the seesaw. And so saying that like he's going to bring balance to the Force, that doesn't mean he gets rid of all the evil.
Right, and we've also had this serious discussion almost of if everything was good in the world, then wouldn't it be kind of boring? Or if everything was bad, then it's like miserable. So you have to have the good with the bad in order to keep going, I feel like. And I think it's the same in that aspect too. So,
and also too, like we were talking about earlier, the sheer amount of Jedi that there were compared to how many Sith we see. Like, I hate to say it, but him kind of like sacking the temple was that kind of balanced
in a way,
the scale in a way too.
Technically,
it was like good was.
I think it's even worse in the Old Republic, though. And I don't know if you know a whole lot about that, but that would have been like, I think it's technically what the Acolyte is based off of. It's way, 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 way back in the day. And it's like, okay, there were so many Jedi that it was like overrun. And to hear of a Sith sounded insane because they just weren't around. Because the famous line that Kai Mundi says is the Sith had been extinct for a millennium. That's literally what Acolyte is contradicting and why many people got upset too. That's a very good toy, Gus. And yeah, I know that's honestly how that show sounded too. But like,
you guys are getting a special show tonight with musical guest Ghosty Maloney.
That's ironic that you're playing that sound while I act like it's played, but that'll be a whole different episode. I don't even want to get into that right now. But I think you're right though, because I think in a lot of aspects the sequels did had some really, really good scenes of explaining, the Force in those aspects, and that's true.
So another talking point that we had written down was in terms of like his fall to the dark side. How much of it was due to Emperor Palpatine, and then how much of it was due to just like his own fear of loss, like of losing Padme?
I feel like it's almost similar to, I mean, Yoda basically says it at the very beginning, like fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. That entire thing literally happens to him. Yeah. So it's like, okay.
And we used to have the sickest edit saved on TikTok to that, and I've tried to find it a million times.
And it's like he loses his mom, so therefore, because he lost his mom, he's afraid to lose his wife. It makes sense. And then he ends up doing it because he thinks he's trying to protect her the entire time.
Yeah.
But it doesn't work that way, and then it ends up flipping over, and then he loses her anyways.
Yeah.
But I feel like Palpatine was pulling the strings because he knew what he was doing at the same time.
Yeah.
Because he could bring up the entire thing of the Darth Plagueis stuff and then how he was under him and then go through that. But yeah, it's like my wife's gonna die of childbirth, which I assume Palpatine threw in his head too.
The dreams.
I feel like
Yeah.
that was part of it, and I think it is. I think that
Okay,
is
I was going to
canon.
ask you the same thing. Is it like confirmed?
I think it's canon that
He was
he
sending
was the
those dreams?
one like forcing that on him, which would make sense.
Yeah.
So
So Yoda says that, like, but the fear leads to, whatever. He says that in episode 1. So by that time, like, had Palpatine already gotten him? Probably not. Like, I think that he was a child, and like taking him away from his mother, and like him having that like innate fear. And she wasn't married to that one guy yet. Like, she wasn't married. It was just her and Annie.
Lars.
So he's like, I'm leaving her behind by herself. And I think that any child, like,
any kid would feel terrible.
yeah, and be like, have that in the back of his mind. And so I think that's like, the Jedi equally have to take accountability for pushing him. Like, yes, it was Emperor Palpatine and his like fear of loss, but the Jedi's like overcommitment to having no attachment. Like, he should have been able to like write a letter to his mom, and they were like, it's either us or her, and his mom was like, I'm literally a slave.
Okay,
like,
well,
you have to go.
Well, that's why we were talking about it earlier, where it's like, okay, you should be able to have connections in a way.
It's like the Pope.
Well,
What
it's
if the
not.
Pope's
I
like a
know.
wife?
Well,
I'm not Catholic,
that's
so
a whole Catholic.
I'm sorry.
It's totally different, and that's a whole
Leave it
bag
in,
of
though.
weeds.
Leave it in, though,
because my Aunt Sue would even say the same thing. It's like they should be able to have a wife.
They should
Should be able to have a wife. It doesn't make any sense. That's a whole bag of yarn.
Star Wars is like a biblical
But like,
thing, though, I think.
well, that's what I'm saying, and that's why I say that Mace Windu is Old Testament. He is no. You will not hang out with anybody. You will not like love
drink,
anybody.
don't smoke.
Right? Don't drink. Don't smoke. Don't swear.
Yeah.
And it's like that whole thing. But like, take a seat. You're not master. Plain and
And
simple.
like, Yoda had a wife. So
Supposedly, that's why Baby Yoda's around, but we don't know that officially.
no, I think it's canon that
I think
he had a wife.
he had that. Yes, that's in Rebels too. I think.
Everything that happened, the Jedi have to take as much responsibility as Emperor Palpatine. Plus, like, always, like, keeping, we recognize you as part of this council, but we don't grant you the rank of master. Like,
Right.
stuff like that. Like, you're keeping him close, but pushing him away at the same time. And it's because of, it's their fear equally as much as it was his fear of loss. It was their fear of like what he would become, but they're inevitably the ones that drove him to it.
Well, that's where you also sit there and you go, I think the Jedi Council got too comfortable. They were like, oh yeah, everything's good. We don't have any issues, and
Yeah.
that's how Senator Palpatine was so easy to just like jump in and take over. 'Cause and they were completely blind to that.
Yeah.
Which is another whole thing, and it's like, how could you not see that?
Yeah.
So,
I think Anakin too, like, he, like, what 20-year-old or
I guess what's
20
his official age in there? I don't know. I think it's early 20s. It's probably almost closer to 18, if anything.
I don't know, but what 20 to, like, I would say even like 30, maybe 28, because I'm 27, so I'll just go a year older. What person can't like kind of relate to him in how he was like talking to Padme about Anakin, or sorry, talking to Padme about Obi-Wan, and just being like, he's holding me back, I can be so much more. Like, I feel like that's a very common feeling to have, like, in that age
Totally.
range, like, even like at work, of like, I'm ready to take on more, I want more responsibility, and like they're jealous of me, so they won't give it to me, type of thing. And I think Palpatine kind of like seized on that as well, and being like, absolutely, like, they don't trust you, bro, and like you could be so much more. It's a shame you don't have the dark power that I have.
It's sad, but then that's where you would think that your elder leaders, like someone like Obi-Wan and your Mace Windus and your Yodas, would be like, hey, we're gonna make sure you're taken care of,
Yeah.
and we're gonna figure this out. Instead, they're just like, oh no, it's fine.
I think that's, yeah, it was a failure on like both parts.
Sure.
And I think,
But it needed to happen, and it's still a great story. I don't deny. I wouldn't change anything that was written.
No, I think-
George Lucas perfected that part.
I think you have to,
it's
like,
part of it.
yeah, that's what makes it so like in depth, because you can sit here and have this conversation. It's not like, it's not black and white. It's not like,
No.
because if the Jedi had just like given him everything, and if they were like perfect to him, it wouldn't make sense for him to have this like dramatic of a fall
No.
as he did. Take
So-
a little fall from grace. So, and then the other part was Padme's death. Like, that was kind of just, I feel like, his final push to Vader. Right? Like,
What is it? she's lost the will to live. But there's, it's like,
It's like, girl,
it's like, all right.
you just gave birth to two wills to live.
She's lost the will to live, and it's like, okay.
She said, "You're breaking my heart." I know. I played her on the playground.
Oh god.
She's my first starring role. But yeah, I don't know. That's not really like a talking point. That's just a statement. Like, I think that like her death. But wouldn't you, like, in Anakin's shoes, wouldn't you kind of like just be super pissed at like Palpatine? Like when you wake up and you're like burnt to a crisp. Like when you're like, hey, where's Padme? Like, is she okay? Is she all right? It's like, you said that you were gonna teach me this power to save her, and she's still gone. Like,
Right. But he tells him that in your anger
Yeah, like,
you
it was
killed
you.
her. It was you. It was your problem. Because he's like, I'm victim. I'm the victim.
Yeah.
Palpatine says, I'm the victim.
he went to the
You
South
hurt me."
Park.
Yeah.
Well, still with all of that, I still think he was a tragic hero, and really only like in Vader was he a villain in my eyes, but still just like maybe not a tragic hero in a sense, but like a tortured soul. He's really just, he can't like forgive himself. I
Right.
guess, like you said, like upon waking up, it's like, hey, I could have helped you save Padme, but like in your anger, you killed her. I think like, how could you forgive yourself for killing?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you looking at me like that? Could you forgive yourself?
No. But he also has 2 kids he don't know about. 'Cause I assume
Oh, because when they do like the funeral procession, like Padme still, they like made her look pregnant.
Yes, which would make sense.
So that he would think that the
Right.
babies died too.
That's right.
Through Luke, is he redeemed?
Yes. Because he technically kills off Palpatine in the end. He's the one that lifts him up and throws him down the big dark tube. It's not Luke that does it.
But is that enough to like absolve you?
Of all your transgressions.
Like, dude blew up planets
And children.
and like multiple
Don't
times.
forget the Obi-Wan show. He goes walking down and then he just goes,
Okay.
I was like, I
Yes.
was like, that was a kid he just killed. He loves it.
Has that been your most recent favorite like Vader content? And I feel like, yeah, it has to be Obi-Wan, right? But then like,
Also Rogue One, but yeah.
oh yes,
'Cause
true.
that would probably be your favorite. My favorite
I
is
haven't-
still going to be the last fight between Obi-Wan and Vader in the Obi-Wan series. Disney hasn't been the greatest with certain things, but they nailed that scene in my opinion. Like that scene is still, that's top tier Star Wars. That's great Star Wars, is seeing them go at it and then the cut off mask. And I think we technically, in a way, you sort of see Anakin talking, even though he says it's not Anakin talking. But
Yeah.
that's still top tier in
Yeah.
my opinion. That was one of the best scenes of Obi-Wan, if not the best scene. So
I do like the Rogue One scenes. I actually have never been able to make it through Rogue One, and
Rogue One's great.
no, I have no idea why.
It's great.
I don't, and like it doesn't matter what time we put it on.
Which is probably why we haven't watched Andor, because Andor is kind of based on Rogue One.
Is it really? I feel like that's why we didn't start watching it, because you were like, you haven't made it through Rogue One.
Right.
It does not matter what time we put that movie on. We could put it on at 1 p.m. and I would like get 30 minutes in and I would be like I don't know
good.
what it is.
It's really good.
Because I've looked up on I had to look up on YouTube like Darth Vader scenes from Rogue One. Because I love Darth Vader. I think he is actually like, statistically, he is like the most recognizable villain, I think, like in the world. I think that's like
I think we said that. Like it
was like a study they did or something. But yeah, so I would say Rogue One. I loved everything in Obi-Wan. I love when he is like walking through the little village and he starts dog walking that person with the Force. Remember, he like is like dragging them behind. I love that though.
He
Because
snaps a child's neck. I was like,
yes, but that is so awesome because we
Like-
hardly ever get to see Darth Vader prime. He's not in his
That
prime
technically is the first
in the
time.
original
I mean,
trilogy.
You can argue with New Hope. He's kind of in his... but the thing is, that's just such an old school lightsaber fighting because it was more based on actual, like, sword duels.
No,
That's
it's
why.
cool. I'm not discrediting it. I'm just saying that, like, that's probably not, like, if it was, like, IRL, that's probably, that's most likely not his prime. You know,
Probably not.
like he's a little bit older than.
Sure.
He's got like how old's Luke? Like 19?
18.
19?
Yeah.
Do you how see it's probably it would be nice to know
So
how
then
old
he's
he
at
is.
least like 38 in New Hope. Well, okay, maybe he's
You're
he's
like
in his
33
mid
and you're
40s.
already decrepit. Like he's not in his prime.
He's in his 40s, I'd say, when he's Darth Vader.
Yeah.
Well, New Hope Darth Vader. Yeah.
Maybe like mid 40s or something like that, right?
Something like that.
But it'd be so cool to see. So once he got like burnt to a crisp, he probably needed like a couple of years. So like he had to go in the back to tank a couple of times and like
They kind of show that in the Obi-Wan show a little bit.
yeah.
Yeah.
But he probably needed like a couple of years to like adjust. But like after that, like I feel like Rogue One and Obi-Wan, like that was probably his prime. And just like still like angry. Like when he meets Obi-Wan in like the original trilogy, he's still pissed, but it's just like, well, I'm gonna get rid of you now. Like, you know, so I liked in Obi-Wan is like especially seeing him kind of almost toy with him.
Yes.
Oh,
What?
no. Yes, my favorite Darth Vader scene is in Obi-Wan, and it's when the ship is flying away
Oh,
and he
yeah.
grabs it. Do you remember how many times we rewound that and watched that?
'Cause it was just it just showed how super powerful he was. Yet then they showed Rey and Kylo Ren doing it in the sequels. But yeah, I would say it was super.
It wasn't as cool.
It was a
Like,
big deal.
It was way cooler when Darth Vader did it. And then right after that, he starts dueling with the third sister. And
Yes.
remember, he
Then he just
it doesn't even have a lightsaber
cuts it in
on it.
half, gives it to her, and it's just like, yeah, this guy's the man. Like he knows all.
we rewound that, and we must have watched that
Yeah,
like
it was
10
sweet.
times, like just sitting there. And then I always go on my phone and like watch stuff later. But
Yeah.
that was so cool.
That was
So
really
that's my most recent stuff. And do I think that you got to ask me questions too on the pod?
Sure.
You got to ask, what do you think? But okay, so I'll ask myself, do I think that he was redeemed through Luke? And like, did it make up for his Vader atrocities? Probably not. I mean, he gets to be a Force ghost, so I would say like canonly, maybe the Force decides like he was balanced at the end, and that's why he like gets to come back.
That's a really good point.
But he blew some planets up, like killed some chitlins. Like
Well, technically, Tarkin blew up the planets.
it comes down to whoever pushes the red button.
Well, maybe.
It's like Oppenheimer built the bomb, but
Right. It would be
Truman
just
dropped
like
it.
that. It'd be the same thing.
yeah. So I don't know. I think that maybe he redeemed himself to Luke through getting rid of the Empire, but like to the galaxy. There was something one time that we saw, and it was like the estimated death toll while they were
billions.
taking over, and it was a lot of people. How many he personally got rid of, I don't know, but
It was a lot.
I also don't know if he's redeemed. I think Tragic Hero, you err more on the side of like a villain.
He's not a bad guy. I mean,
Just because you're a bad guy
he
doesn't mean you're a
killed
bad guy.
a lot of people, but it's. I mean, it's kind of. I mean, we can. It's almost like the Arthur Morgan thing. It's like you did terrible things, but then you do all these things to try and redeem yourself at the end. Is that worth it? I don't know. All forgiving, all knowing. Maybe the Force is like that. Sure.
Yeah.
But I would think, yeah, I think he is, 100%.
100% what?
That he's a good guy.
He's a good
He's a good guy. Yeah, he's a good guy.
You heard it here first.
Yeah. Not a great guy. But he ends up. He returns back to Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, like 2 minutes before he says, I don't know.
A lot of people do that before they die.
I know, right?
So,
I think
how do you determine that?
determine.
Whether you go to heaven or not.
I don't know. I'm Lutheran, so by grace and faith alone. You were raised Catholic, you gotta do a little bit more to get it. I was just gonna say, I think, like, Anakin was definitely, like, a fallen, like a dark prince, like, fallen from grace and,
Fallen
like, tragic
angel,
hero.
basically.
Yeah, a fallen angel. Darth Vader was definitely, like, I think he made more of his own decisions and, you know, whatever, but still, like the concept of like, well, I'm the master and you're the Padawan, or like, you know, I'm the Sith Lord and you're like whatever, like that's very like controlling in and of itself. But yeah, I don't know. So I would kind of say that. And if he is a villain, he's a dang good villain. No, he is a villain, and I feel like he's just like the OG villain, and one of like he is probably Anakin and slash Darth Vader, probably like top like he's either my favorite character in Star Wars or like my second favorite character in Star Wars.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Because he's just like that freaking cool. But anyways, let us know in the comments what you think. Do you think...
If you're watching.
Yeah. Let us know, camera. If you think Anakin is tragic hero or a villain, or was his redemption enough to absolve him of everything that happened when he was Darth Vader? We're interested to hear some other takes. These were our takes. So, all right. The council is adjourned. Thank you.